two quick observations or comments. First was the sharing economy on the bikes. I felt that the implementers, being bureaucrats, should have known the practical issues a lot better, because they were much better implemented in China, the US, and wherever else. These were academics sitting in office and not realizing the down to practical issues that came about, which were quite obvious to the layman. And on that score, we commissioned a study that was done by MIT in Singapore. And the study showed that with 30% of the car population that we have now, we could have a far better transportation system, simply because 90 to 95% of the time the car is static in a porch or in a parking lot. In a sharing economy, it's used more. And we have invested in, strangely enough, an Indian company. They're very dynamic companies out of India. These people are purely Indian, technology out of India, managing 450,000 parking spaces in Europe. And they're working with Daimler, Chrysler, Volkswagen to provide specialized services. But they are ahead of the curve, and they have realized that the parking spaces are going to become irrelevant down the road, the bulk of them. So they're working with the more progressive companies like Wilson to provide cleaning, servicing, and charging platforms in the parking station, so that the cars which are going around get the servicing done. And those other parking service providers that do not have these value adds are going to have to close down. Now, it's incredible that if you look at land use in a city like LA, and it's pretty high in Singapore, but LA is free market enterprise, 25% of land use is allocated to car or car-related activity. That means petrol stations, parking spaces, etc., roads, and so on. And that's an incredibly high figure for any country. But what is going to happen with the shared economy is that a lot of these spaces are going to be liberated. So new real estate will come onto the market. So that's an interesting phenomenon. The second observation that was regarding our education system, and you rightly pointed out, actually the awareness is there right on top. The bureaucracy has been so well brainwashed that they can't see where the changes need to happen. But one of the biggest challenges are the parents. They are in a different paradigm, and we are doing a disservice to their children by trying to use their paradigm as the role model on how to bring up your children, because it's not relevant. And our system is such that you tax the student right up to university, that when he graduates, he doesn't have any more dynamism or life left. Now take the example of Scandinavia, where they don't believe in homework. They're not squeezed in terms of academics, but they have a healthy relationship with the outdoor life, with sports, and so on. And I think the fact that we don't naturally gravitate to sports to me is a very important paradigm in terms of learning your limits. If you're skiing downhill at full speed, you know when you're going to fall and when to try and stop. But if you don't have those dimensions, you go into business without knowing when to stop. And they come up full of enthusiasm and wanting to change the world. And they have the highest incidence of producing unicorns, higher than Silicon Valley, simply because they have this drive, capital is available, and if you fail, the consequences are not dire, because it's a welfare state, right? And they've been successful for that reason. And I think Singapore has got to change that. And one of the reasons it's got to change is that, Kannan, you and I belonged to them at one point in time, the Singapore Pravda. If you don't have a questioning culture, how do you make paradigm shifts in thinking and questioning? Not that you're against the system or the government, but you want a higher level of debate and intellectual activity, so that policies and ideas get tested, so that you're not subject to violent U-turns down the road.